백훈종의 전지적 비트코인 시점. 안녕하세요. 오늘도 초대석에 귀중한 손님을 한 분 모셨습니다. 저의 우상이자 약간 저에게는 연예인 같은 분이죠. 근데 사실상 알고 보면은 굉장히 친근한 옆집 형 같은, 그래서 제가 실제로도 형님이라고 가끔 부르는데 뭐 좋아하시는지는 잘 모르겠어요. 지미송 모셨습니다.
안녕하세요.
지금부터는 영어로 이제 할게요. 지미송은 이제 영어가 더 편하시기 때문에 hello.
Hey,
It's good to see you.
good to see you.
Thanks for having accepting this interview for today. It's an honor to have you here in the studio. You are my second guest for my interview
Okay.
content. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been great. Obviously Bitcoin's doing well, so that's always like,
Right.
I don't know, like a lot of people complain about inflation and stuff like that, but for me, the price of everything gets lower as Bitcoin goes up in price. So it's actually not that bad. So
Yeah. Bitcoin is doing great compared to stocks. I think it's doing a fantastic job. But before we talk about Bitcoin, why are you in Korea? What brought you to Korea?
I come here with my family like every year now. This is our third year in a row. So it's been a lot of fun, just sort of traveling. And, as a dad, I want to make sure that they're getting something, more than what most people can get. And, traveling and, like helping them see their roots. And also they just kind of like all the stuff that's here, right? Like my daughter's like getting their nails done and stuff.
Nails.
Yeah, my son's like playing the video games and stuff. So there's something for everybody. So we come here like a decent amount.
I heard you are going to Japan after this. And whenever you come to Korea, you always go to Japan, like next to the Korean time, right? Do you see any differences between the two cultures? What's the major difference you can find?
I actually see them as like kind of similar, right? I don't know if you've ever read anything by Rene Girard, but there's this idea that the biggest rivals tend to be the most similar, right? So Korea and Japan obviously have a big rivalry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like the more I see them, the more I'm like, okay, they're imitating this here and they're imitating this here. And, that's what actually causes the enmity is the similarity. I see this all over Europe, right? The Belgians and the Dutch like hate each other or whatever, but really they're very similar. So there's a lot of that. But we also really enjoy Japan. It's a fun place to go. We have some friends there. There's a Bitcoin space there that just opened called Bitcoin Base in Tokyo. So I'll be speaking there in a few weeks. So, it's a good place to visit and, give the kids a little bit more of a, world perspective, I guess, for their life and so on.
In terms of the size of the Bitcoin community, which country has a bigger community, do you think?
I was actually surprised at the size of the community at the Seoul Bitcoin meetup this past Saturday. I was telling people that when I came here in 2018 and went to the same meetup, it was, I think Calvin Kim, who's like obviously a Korean guy, and 6 white people. Right? They're all foreigners or something like that. And this time around, it was like 1 foreigner and 39 like Korean people, right? And like we actually had some trouble communicating because they like not all of them understood English. So
that's right.
So I see that as a really good sign. Last time I went to I spoke at the Japanese meetup. I think it was like 70% foreigners, right? So I think there's more of, grassroots, activity here that's, at least for Bitcoin. It could be because, a lot of people got disillusioned from altcoins or whatever, but, it does seem like there's a bigger community here.
But there's no such thing as, Bitcoin space in Seoul, right?
Not yet. Not like Bitcoin Base or like, Bitcoin Park or, Presidio or, there's a whole bunch of spaces all over the world now.
Right.
But nothing quite like that. And, it'll take time, so usually takes some whale or somebody that's willing to pay for something like that. But I think it'll come.
Yeah, I believe so too. So in Korea these days, this term stablecoin is such a phenomenon. Everybody's talking about stablecoin. They're not just talking about dollar stablecoin, but they also talk about KRW stablecoin. They think it's a must-have for Korea to fight against dollar stablecoins dominance, like expanding throughout the world. And I want to just first talk about the dollar stablecoins first. It's obviously a strategy for the Scott Bessent and Donald Trump to print more money, right? Issue more debts, and they want to issue more short-term treasury bills, and they want the stable coins to increase the demand for those short-term treasury bills so they can print more money. Do you think this strategy will succeed in the end?
Oh, well, it's been succeeding for a while, right? And the market cap of Tether alone is something like $180 billion. That's a significant amount, and it's all asset backed, right? At the very, I think vast majority of it is in treasuries. Some of it is in Bitcoin and so on. But they do this because there is a significant dollar demand, and you have to understand that dollar demand comes from the market, right? A lot of people from foreign countries and so on that don't have access to U.S. bank accounts, to dollar-denominated bank accounts.
Right.
This is their alternative, and that's the market that they're serving. Like what the Trump administration, I think, is trying to do is use that as a way to inject more money without necessarily having to print it. Because if there are people that will buy these treasuries and not have it be on the Fed's balance sheet, then it's not necessarily printing, right? Because they're using their own savings to go and buy some. So it sort of like curbs inflation. It's like sort of, at least from their perspective, the best of both worlds. It's not, increasing the money supply, but they're able to borrow from the market at like a fairly low interest rate. But, as far as like, the demand of dollars versus, other stuff, almost every country, you have a lot of people that want dollars way more than their local currency because their local currency debases even faster. So that's where the major market is, and you can kind of see it by how much Tether makes, right? I think currently they're more profitable than any U.S. bank in existence, right? Bank of America, Wells Fargo, even like Goldman Sachs, like none of them make as much money as Tether. And what do? They just, issue dollars and, buy treasuries. So they make the spread between that, which is like 4 or 5% at this point. On $160 billion. That's what, $8 billion or something like that. That's a lot of money, right? 8 billion. And that's what profit they're making. And they have like 50 employees, whereas like Wells Fargo has like 100,000. It's kind of mind-blowing how inefficient banks have become, and it's sort of an indictment on the fiat banking system.
But now everybody's trying to issue their own dollar stablecoins. When the Genius Act actually is signed by Donald Trump, then all the big tech companies will come out and issue their own stablecoins, and the banks will issue their own. But I always think this money is also a network, right? And the network always goes to the network effect, affected by network effect, and network effect always leads to the monopoly. That's my belief. Then what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think Tether's kind of won, right? Like I know USDC, Circle has a big market cap in the stock market right now, but honestly, like Tether's won. Like the artificial sort of pumping of the assets on USDC, for example, it's artificial, right? Like they just put a bunch of money. They have all these like weird incentives where they're paying out people that are keeping it in USDC and so on. So I don't think that's really sustainable. I think Tether's one, but I don't know. It's possible that some bank can issue way more or make it more attractive or something like that. But I mean, Tether can do the same thing if it comes to it, where they start paying out like a 1% interest on Tether if you keep it for a certain time or lock it up or something like that. And that's totally normal. That's what banks do. It's just that Tether has been, at least early on, was the only player for a long time. And a lot of people in the developing world, it was for them like a lifeline because,
Yeah.
they can have savings that wasn't debasing away from them at, 30, 40%.
Their market share is still above 70%, I guess. But I think the CEO, he said when the Genius Act enacts, then there might be two different versions of Tether. One follows the Genius Act, and another one focusing on the market outside of the US and still having Bitcoin and gold as a reserve asset.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right way to go.
The right way to go.
Because regulations in the US, at least with the Genius Act, it looks like sort of like over-engineered to some degree, right? And too much of concession to banks. Because it was working fine before, and now they're sort of doing this weird thing to make it so that the banks have an advantage. I really don't think banks are very good at this stuff. So I don't expect it to do that well. But who knows? We will let the market decide.
Yeah. Do you think there's a possibility that the US government will go after Tether and maybe make Tether similar to CBDC?
Well, I mean, they've already tried going after Tether, at least the Southern District of New York. I think they charge them with a few things, but at this point, that case is long over. But they've been around a long time, and I think they have enough influence where I don't think they're going to get in trouble. They're too big at this point.
To fail.
Yeah, I mean, well, not to fail, but too big of a company, and they have enough money where they're able to lobby and stuff like that. So I don't think they're going to just sort of disappear. It's possible the banks gang up on them, or if the U.S. decides to do a CBDC to say, okay, well, all this other stuff is no longer allowed. That's entirely possible, but it would require a lot more political will for something like a CBDC than currently exists, and I don't really see that ever existing, like that level of sort of desire to do it as a government.
That's right. As a Korean living in Korea, I sometimes find it hard to believe that dollar stablecoin will be actually used in this economy, daily basis. Because it's so comfortable to just spend money here and stack my Korean won in my bank account. And I heard some people even in Korea is using a credit card called We.Pay. It's a fintech company in Hong Kong, and they issued this Visa MasterCard, and you can charge the card. It's a debit card, actually, not a credit card. You can charge it with the Tether and USDC stablecoin, and they can use it anywhere in Seoul, and the merchant just receiving Korean won. So some people are using it, and everybody's talking about it. This is an attack of US dollar stablecoin, and it'll dominate the Korean market and crowd out Korean won's demand from Korean people. So I agree with you that developing nations, in developing countries, of course, there's a high demand for dollar because their currency is devaluing against dollar. But Korean people don't really realize that in their daily life. But do you think the dollar stablecoin will have its own market here, even in Seoul and some countries like Japan?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really depends on the local policies of the central bank, right? If you're fiscally irresponsible, then something like a dollar stablecoin becomes way more attractive. We've seen the won lose significantly against the dollar over the past, 10 years or so. So for people that have that kind of memory, then it kind of makes more sense to have dollars, and it makes way more sense to have Bitcoin, honestly. But that's like sort of a step in that direction, where a lot of the people that are arguing this is an attack on the won, actually, no, it's an attack on the Korean central bank's ability to print and, sort of create their own money and debase the people of Korea that are actually saving in the won. So is it rational for people to denominate in the dollar if the won is debasing? Yeah, absolutely. And that's the same case in Japan and any other country, to be frank. But will stable coins make that easier? Absolutely. Does that sort of like put some reins on the central bank? I kind of think so, because they can't debase willy-nilly, right? If they just keep printing crazy amounts of money, then at a certain point, there's no demand for the won anymore, right? Like outside of Korea, no one wants the won. So you pretty much have to print to the degree that the population is willing to absorb. And at this point, with the low birth rates and whatnot, it just makes it very difficult for the population to absorb much more won. And you can kind of see it. Like I was talking to my wife the other day about like, just last year, what we experienced versus this year. And the inflation's gotten pretty bad here, right? Like we were going to like Dongdaemun and like buying like some food or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like last year it was like 6,000 won. It's like this year it's 10,000, right? It's like what happened? Just going to the grocery store and getting like a bottle of green tea or something, and it was like 1,200. Now it's like 1,800. Like, just inflation is so obviously here. So for for an individual actor, for somebody that's in Korea, like I imagine it's kind of like, okay, why is everything getting more expensive? Probably your salary hasn't kept up with that. So at that point, you have to start thinking, okay, I have some savings. If it's getting debased away from me, I have to think of alternatives. So many ways, the stable coins like the dollar, they're a hedge against what's actually happening. So take that as you will, but I don't think it's an attack on Korea or Koreans as much as it is an attack on the ability of the Korean government to fund whatever excesses that they want.
Yeah, that was my next question in my head, actually. You go around the city, Seoul. In your book, Fiat Ruins Everything, you talk about all these things that are ruined by fiat system, right? Do you find anything like that in Seoul? Other than inflation? You talked about inflation.
Yeah. Inflation is honestly everywhere. And that's very common. As far as like Korea goes, it's interesting because like, the way fiat money ruins America is not the same way fiat money ruins Korea. So in the United States, generally what you get are like poor goods and services. I don't think that's necessarily the case in Korea, although, some of that is obviously happening. But what I see here is a lot more labor debasement, and that tends to happen just because of the way the dollar hegemony works. Everyone wants dollars outside the US, but to sort of like to get more manufacturing within a particular country, you have to sort of devalue your currency so that you have cheaper exports and so on. I think Korea, Japan, China, they've all done that. And to a significant degree where people are just really much poorer than they were like even 20 years ago. Yeah. And you can kind of see that. And, it's weird because when people are poor, they feel a bigger need to express or to pretend that they're in a higher social status, right? Yeah. So they'll buy like very fancy things to sort of pretend that, or to at least give off the impression that they're in a higher class than they are. Yeah. And that's a very weird phenomenon to me. It's very particular to Korea and Japan and places like that, where you have people that are making very little money that are buying like a Lamborghini, right? Like, which is just like, I don't understand sort of the cultural context maybe to do something like that. But in the US, you buy it when you have like a lot of money, not like when you're still like really poor and like save and scrounge, and like the status game isn't quite at that level. So it's a very weird, potent mixture, but it seems to be the case here, which is culturally very interesting and I guess strange at the same time.
What do you think is the solution for Korea then? What does the Korean people have to do?
Well, I think fiat money is the root of a lot of this evil. So I think getting rid of that would do it. But I mean, the problem is that fiat money is such an integral part of the world financial system and how everything works. I know a lot of Korean companies are hopped up on that, right? As are American companies and European companies. Just that's how you're supposed to sort of run things. And it's not about profit or innovation anymore. It's just sort of surviving by getting into debt and using that instead of actually selling something at a profit and using the savings to invest. So That I think would do a lot. The one thing that I think is already pretty healthy in Korea is that there's a healthy amount of entrepreneurship. I mean, even the studio, right? Like the people that are running it here and stuff like that. There's a lot of people doing new things, and that's, I think, ultimately what builds civilization. And there's a lot of people willing to do that. Not as many, I feel like, in say Europe or the US or Canada. I mean, there probably are, but it's almost sort of regulated out of existence to some degree. So I think, getting out of the fiat system, maybe getting out of this, sort of like status game mentality, which, seems to be very pervasive, I think would be also very healthy. But it's hard to say, right? Because, so many of the, problems are deeper than they look on the surface, and it's ultimately really difficult to know what the true cause is.
So getting out of a 9 to 6 type of kind of life and maybe stacking Bitcoin, stacking their wealth in Bitcoin would be a solution.
Well, that's part of it, but like also providing goods and services to people that actually want it, right? So many jobs today it's like 9 to 8 or something. You know, and you know, a lot of the people that are doing those jobs, they're miserable, even though they worked really, really hard to get there, right? To get that one job at this company or whatever. And they're getting paid very little, right? This is what I'm talking about with debased labor.
Yeah.
You know, the same level of skill, you can get paid like 6 figures or more in the US. It's like way less here. And that labor arbitrage is what allows, the companies that are, multinationals to make a lot of money, is that you can get the labor price to be fairly cheap in one place and sell in another place where they're gonna pay a lot more for it. So getting out from under that sort of, almost like slave-like system, right? I think requires the fiat system, honestly, to collapse at some point. Large companies have way too much power all over the world. And it's unfortunate, but they're almost as bad as big government, which, you know, we can talk about as well.
The Korean government is pushing for the stable coin.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think KRW stablecoin is necessary for Korea?
That feels to me like sort of like a step towards a CBDC. That's probably how they're going to sell it or something like that. I mean, from what I understand, most Koreans have a bank account. At least in the US, the argument for something like a CBDC is that, you know, there's a lot of poor people that don't have bank accounts, and now they can have one. And instead of having Wells Fargo, it's like, you know, some government, so everyone has like an equal thing. Here, that's not really a problem. So
right.
Why would you want something like that? Is it more convenience? Already payment is extremely convenient pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Already, there's like 7 different ways to pay, and everything works, right? Like Kakao Pay and Samsung Pay and Apple Pay, all of those things all just kind of work. So I don't think that's necessarily the case. The case that I imagine they would make for something like a CBDC is so that like the bad people aren't able to transact, and some elimination of cash, maybe something like that would be the goal. So yeah, I would be very skeptical of some sort of won stablecoin.
Some people argue that K-pop, K-culture, K-food is such a phenomenon these days. So those people who consume these services and products will benefit from KRW stablecoin. Like, for example, your kids living in the US, they like to watch K-pop movie. They'll be able to pay those contents with KRW stablecoin.
Well, I mean, we pay like $9 a month to Netflix, and we seem to get all the Korean content anyway. I don't know if that's realistic. I mean, I suppose if there's like K-beauty products that are like not available, but in Indonesia, for example, and there's an Indonesian that wants it, maybe they can do that. But I mean, they already accept credit cards and other things. And if the markup is too much, then that's room for an entrepreneur to figure out an import-export business and do that. I actually have friends in the US that do that, right? Like import K-beauty products and sell them in the US and for dollars. And, you know, you don't have to worry about that. I really don't think there's that much demand for Korean won outside of Korea. Dollar is used as the currency for international trade. So
Yeah.
that's what everyone uses. It's possible that we might get a second currency in there if BRICS comes up with something, but I really don't think that that's really a viable use case. I could be wrong, but I just don't see the demand there.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I mean, if I imagine I'm going to use comparatively stable coin on a daily basis, I have to pay for these expensive blockchain fees. Whatever blockchain I use, the cost will be higher than credit cards and any payment services.
Well, it could be, but I mean, like you could also just run it off of a centralized database. Yeah, I honestly, like, if it's a CBDC, that's exactly how they would do it. And
Yeah.
they try to lower the cost at least, and make the marginal cost close to zero. That may be an argument as well, is, you take out the fees of Visa and MasterCard and, nationalize it maybe. But I mean, I don't have too much faith that government will be able to lower or beat the prices of what private manufacturers can do.
It's either run by government or central bank or a large company like Coinbase. Right?
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. They try to do different things, and but the regulations kind of make it almost impossible to run it without significant fees. Yeah.
What's your view on the Lightning Network adopting USD stablecoins? Tether is issued on the Lightning Network, right?
With Taproot assets, or at least that's the plan. I'm not really aware of people using it yet. But I mean, Tether is something that a lot of people demand. So
Yeah.
at that point, you can have a decentralized exchange where you can trade tethers for Bitcoin or on Lightning. So that's a possible use case. I haven't really seen it yet. And I think that's what Lightning Labs is sort of counting on, is that demand being there. So it could be very fast and very useful and cheap and everything else. But I wait for the market to speak more than anything else.
Now we can talk about the treasury, crypto treasury bubble. So in Korea, there are about 3 companies that are doing the Bitcoin treasury.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But some of them we have a suspicion that some of them are just buying Bitcoin to get onto this trend and boost up their stock prices and sell at the peak. It's just a suspicion, but, because no one knows who the CEO is.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah. And they just came out of nowhere and started doing this. And there are media articles everywhere. It's obviously written by the company. So we have suspicion. But obviously, when you log on to X, when you go into X, then you see so many articles announcing they are now the treasury, Bitcoin treasury companies. Do you see the bubble forming in this segment?
Well, I mean, there's obviously a lot of them, but I don't know if it's necessarily a bubble. For a lot of companies, it just makes sense. If you have a large cash position,
Yeah.
it's a melting ice cube, right? Like what are you going to do with it? You can either constantly get debased through inflation, or you can put it in an asset that's not going to be debased away from you. So that's been Michael Saylor's strategy. That's been the strategy of a lot of these other companies. Now, where it gets kind of tricky is when you're taking out debt to go buy that stuff. And the leverage obviously can affect you, because you can get wrecked a lot easier than if you're just holding it as part of your balance sheet and not as a levered instrument using debt. What it seems like to me with all the sketchy companies is that they're doing the latter thing, where they're leveraging, and Michael Saylor calls it like the infinite money glitch. To some degree it is, as long as like the leverage isn't too much. But once it gets past a certain point, then you're in danger. And I suspect that that's what will blow up, if anything does, is when they're levered up too much, and then there's a crash, and then, they have to pay back whatever loans. But then you can sort of, design these loans so that you don't have to pay them back for many years or something like that, which is what Michael Saylor is doing. But not everyone will get those terms at a certain point. So, what happens then? That seems to be the big thing. You just have to do a lot more forensic accounting or whatever it is, just examining the balance sheet and what debt instruments they're using and how soon they're due and so on, because those details end up mattering a lot. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend you invest in any of these. I think owning just Bitcoin is a lot better. But I kind of see what's happening. It's sort of the Bitcoinizing of the stock market.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. I think a lot of these things are overpriced anyway, and Bitcoinized companies will probably survive a lot better than everything else.
But there are companies that are purchasing Ethereum or other altcoins, and their stock price goes up like 3,000% over 2 days. How can we analyze these companies? They are doing the same strategy, so they are the must be a winner, like MSTR?
Yeah, no. I really, like, Bitcoin is very different than altcoins, right?
Yeah.
So the altcoin treasuries don't make any sense to me, because if you look at their price compared to even the dollar, it's up and down, and like the vulnerability that they have is significantly higher. So I think a lot of these companies do the crypto treasury just to be different than Michael Saylor, right? Like you want to have a different product that you're bringing to market, so you have some differentiation. Because then everyone else, if you don't, then they're going to be like, why don't I just buy strategy? Why would I buy your thing? So in a way, that's, I think, what they're trying to do. But I think it's the wrong strategy. And I think, those companies will blow up a lot faster. And largely because, what drives the, price of these altcoins is narratives around them. And I mean, they've run out of narratives pretty badly. So where do you go at this point?
ETF? The only narrative they have left right now is maybe ETF launch.
That hasn't been very good for Ethereum. So I don't know if it's a narrative that they really want.
But where can we draw a line if I want to invest in one of the Bitcoin treasury company stocks, MSTR, Metaplanet, 21. Their CEOs are quite known figures. But other than that, for example, Semler Scientific, they are purchasing Bitcoin, they're issuing the corporate bonds, but their stock price is decreasing. So some companies purchase Bitcoin with the lent of borrowed money, but their stock price is going up. Some companies are doing the exact same thing, but their stock price is decreasing. What's the difference between these two?
I couldn't possibly tell you. I haven't studied any of them. But I mean, if I had to guess, maybe it's got to do with the management team or the debt they're taking on, the interest rate at which they're taking them on, and so on. Like, so if you're issuing bonds to go buy Bitcoin, at what rate do you have to issue the bond? Like, what's the, how much are you paying for that? And those things matter. So. Yeah. And what are the terms? How long is the length of the bond, and so on? So, those details end up mattering from an accounting perspective. And of course, these businesses also have, the normal business that they're doing. The bond is just sort of like a treasury strategy. So Semler Scientific, they had a lot of these machines. I don't think a lot of those were profitable for mining and so on. So it might reflect that. So for me, the Bitcoin part is understandable. It's the other stuff that's more the risk. So if you want Bitcoin exposure, just go buy Bitcoin. Why bother with all this other stuff? And there are people that are saying, well, it's kind of like a leveraged Bitcoin play or something like that. There are leveraged Bitcoin plays already in ETFs and so on. You could just use those if you really need to. Right. And if you're like really into like a lot of leverage, then you can go buy options or something. You don't need to buy every Bitcoin treasury company as like a method. Like, it doesn't really make sense from a diversification standpoint, because oftentimes you're buying crappy businesses anyway. So yeah.
Even MSTR could fail, do you think?
Possibly. I mean, it depends how much leverage that they take on. So far it looks okay, but I mean, you'd have to go talk to a forensic accountant, I think, to find out all of the different failure modes and scenarios and things like that.
Now they're issuing preferred stock for capital. And I heard some of the guys on Wall Street, some of my friends working there, they're issuing those preferred stock with really expensive price because the dividend rate is 8 to 10%.
Yeah.
So they are worrying about that, I heard.
Yeah, I mean, the main idea there is that you want to give all the fixed income investors like a very pristine collateral, but you use that money to invest in Bitcoin and you make sort of like the spread between that. Now, it'll work as long as the term is long enough, and I think these are perpetual, so they just sort of go on forever.
Yeah.
And they can get converted to MSTR stock, which keeps it at a certain range or whatever. But as far as the likelihood of it like sort of crashing, it would entirely depend on the rest of MicroStrategy's or Strategy's business.
Yeah.
Which seems okay right now, right? Like they're like as a business, they're a profitable company. They had a lot of cash on their balance sheet for a reason.
Right.
I don't necessarily see the risks there on that. Just because if you believe in Bitcoin like I do, then yeah, it's fine. But if you don't believe in Bitcoin and it doesn't get 8 to 10% on the money, then you start seeing a lot of trouble. So I suspect that that's what your friends are thinking about is, okay, what if it doesn't get 8 to 10%? If it gets 3%, then what? Because now they have to pay 8 to 10%. How are they going to pay for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they have to sell Bitcoin to do it. Now you get into a death spiral or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that would happen if MicroStrategy was, if strategy was built on Ethereum. I think that's a scenario that definitely could happen. But it's built on Bitcoin, and I think 8 to 10% is very conservative. And I think, the Bitcoin that they buy with it can easily beat that.